There's a lot we can say about our political leaders. Are they corrupt? Yes. Are they power hungry? Yes. Are they a bunch of evil, soulless goblins? Yes. But what may be most significant, the trait that may have the most bearing on the future of our country, is that they are, by and large, also extremely stupid. I mean, there's little doubt that we are right now led by the dumbest collection of muddle-headed morons that has ever been assembled in our nation's capital, or any nation's capital. It's difficult to overstate just how monstrously stupid these people are. And if you doubt that, then please consider this video of Democrat Representative Sheila Jackson Lee. And before I play the video, you should understand a few things about Sheila Jackson Lee. The first is that she is a former member of the Science Committee. The second is that she is also a former member of the Space and Aeronautics Committee. And the third is that she is, once again, a sitting member of Congress. And in that position, she gave an address on Monday to students from Booker T. Washington High School. And this address happened on the occasion of the eclipse. In fact, and this is not really the stupid part. Well, it's not the really stupid part, but it is a stupid part. She claims that she, as she put it on Twitter, created the opportunity for the students to see the eclipse. Lee tweeted, quote, "Today I created the opportunity to see a unique science and solar experience for the students at Booker T. Washington High School. As a former member of the Science Committee and a former ranking member of the Space and Aeronautics Committee, this was an irreplaceable moment in history. There should be more opportunities to introduce science to our diverse and vulnerable communities. So many students came out to see history for themselves. Many remarked that this is the first time I've ever seen anything like this, and they made their way to the field. Despite over 90% of Booker T's students being economically disadvantaged, it has managed to build an enthusiastic environment where students are excited to explore the wonders of space and exploration. The hallmark of this excitement is anchored in opportunity." Now, there's enough in those few sentences alone to assess that Sheila Jackson Lee has approximately the IQ of a toothpick. For one thing, she's somehow taking credit for the eclipse. She seems to be suggesting that these young people would not have been able to look up at the sky and view this celestial event if not for her intervention. So by gathering, with the kids and pointing at the sky and saying, "Hey, check it out," she is apparently creating the opportunity to look at the sky. Without her, they would never have thought to look at the sky. They wouldn't know how to look at the sky without her. Second, she seems to chide us for not giving more opportunities to diverse and vulnerable communities to view events like this. But she doesn't explain how we're supposed to create opportunities for diverse communities to see an eclipse in the sky during times when there is no eclipse in the sky. I mean, it only happens once every several years. What are we supposed to do about that? I guess we could invite diverse communities to come outside once a month and then put our hands in front of their faces to sort of simulate the effect of an eclipse, but I'm not sure what that would achieve. Sheila Jackson Lee doesn't really elaborate. And third, as further evidence of her toothpick IQ, she says, "The hallmark of this excitement is anchored in opportunity." Now, I want to be very clear that this statement means absolutely nothing. There is no way to make sense of that sentence. There is no meaning we can really glean from it. I think that maybe what she's trying to say is that the kids were excited for the opportunity to watch the eclipse, which Sheila Jackson Lee had somehow created by some unspecified means. But the phrase anchored in opportunity is at best clunky and unnecessarily wordy. And the phrase the hallmark of this excitement is just incredibly dumb. And together they make kind of a dumb sandwich. In fact, Sheila Jackson Lee, we can tell from this alone, is the dumbest kind of dumb person. Because she's the exact inverse of the smartest kind of smart person. Because we know the smartest kind of smart person is somebody who understands complex topics, but talks about them in simple ways using simple words. And on the other end of that spectrum is the dumbest dumb person who tries to use unnecessarily big words to communicate simple ideas, but doesn't understand the words they're using, and so they don't manage to effectively convey even the simplest idea. So by all of that evidence alone, we already know that Sheila Jackson Lee is a momentous moron. But it's about to get so much worse. Do you owe back taxes or still have unfiled returns? That can really weigh on your mind, especially when the IRS has become even more determined than it's ever been. Their chief data analytics officer revealed that the IRS is focused on an enforcement project with an average return on investment of about $6 for every $1 spent. They're targeting individuals and businesses that currently owe back taxes or haven't yet filed their returns. Tax Network USA, the nation's leading tax relief firm, knows the tax code and will fight for you. With a record of negotiating over $1 billion in tax relief for their clients, Their team is knowledgeable in handling any type of tax issue. Whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million, they can help. Even if you don't have all your personal or business records from over the years, they can get you filed up to date anyway. Facing the IRS without a professional is not a smart move. Contact Tax Network USA for the best strategic advice to help reduce or even eliminate your tax debt. Call today at 1-800-245-6000 or visit their website at tnusa.com/Walsh. They'll give you a free private consultation on how you can settle your tax debt today. That's tnusa.com/Walsh. At this event, before somehow in an unclear way providing kids the opportunity to look at the sky, she addressed the crowd of students and gave them a little lesson in astronomy. Unfortunately, though, she has an understanding of astronomy that is so garbled, confused, and delusional that my 4-year-old daughter could easily fact-check her. Here's what she said.
And sometimes you've heard the word full moon. And sometimes you need to take the opportunity just to come out and see a full moon is that complete rounded circle, which is made up mostly of gases. And that's why the question is why or how could we as humans live on the moon? Are the gases such that we could do that? The sun is a mighty powerful heat that is almost impossible to go near the sun. The moon is more manageable, and you will see in a moment, or not a moment, you'll see in a couple of years that NASA is going back to the moon.
So this is a sitting congresswoman who has been a member of the Science Committee and the Space Committee, saying that the moon is made up mostly of gases. And she then juxtaposes the moon with the sun, which she says has a mighty powerful heat, while the moon is, quote, more manageable. So she appears to believe not only that the moon is a gaseous entity, but also that it gives off its own light and heat. She very much appears to believe that the moon is basically a much dimmer, cooler version of the sun. So she thinks we have like the night sun and the day sun. And why is it darker at night? Because the night sun is dimmer. And I'm not exaggerating and trying to be funny here. That is really what she actually believes. And it is needless to say, hopefully needless to say, completely false. Okay, the moon is solid. Its surface is rocky. The light it gives off is the light it reflects from the sun. It does not create its own light. This is a very basic fact about our solar system that every child by first grade should understand. If my 10-year-old thought that the moon was made of gas, I would be concerned. If I heard my 10-year-old say that, I'd say, what? You're 10, you think that? I would assume, well, I failed as a parent. It would be a disturbing level of ignorance for a 10-year-old. For a 74-year-old congresswoman, it is horrifying. Not to mention baffling. I truly have no idea how you can live through 7.5 decades and never encounter even the most basic facts about the moon. I mean, this is like if a 74-year-old woman declared that the Pacific Ocean is made of chocolate syrup. Okay, it's not just that the belief is wildly off base, it's that it would seem impossible to maintain such an outrageous misconception for that many years. Like, think about how many times that must have come up in conversation through the years to people who didn't correct you. Yet, that apparently is what has happened here. Later that day, Lee responded to the mockery over these comments. She said this, quote, "Obviously, I misspoke and meant to say the sun, but as usual, Republicans are focused on stupid things instead of stuff that really matters. What can I say, though? Foolish thinkers lust for stupidity." Now, look, once again, and I don't mean to get hung up on the minutia, but we have a statement here that makes no sense and means nothing. Foolish thinkers lust for stupidity? What? What is that? It sounds like the kind of thing you see on like a fortune cookie. Is because someone who doesn't speak English thought it sounded profound. You know, something was lost in translation. What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. She thinks it sounds insightful, so she said it. Because she is quite literally dumber than a grasshopper. And she claims that she was really talking about the sun, which is the worst excuse she could have possibly offered. If anybody on her team was at least slightly more intelligent than her, because that's the other thing, by the way, that you have to understand, like this stupidity, it's not just her. Her whole team apparently is this stupid. That's why they posted this video on her Twitter page. And no one thought that there's a problem here. So if anyone on her team was a little bit more intelligent, they would have suggested that she tried to claim that she was referring to the moon's atmosphere when she referenced its gases. Now, the moon does have a very thin atmosphere made up of helium, methane, and other gases. It'd be a hell of a stretch to try to spin it that way. And obviously, it still wouldn't be true that the moon is made up of gases, but at least that would be a somewhat workable excuse, maybe. Instead, she comes up with the least plausible cover story she possibly can. So let's go back and see what her statement would sound like if you swap in the word sun for moon. It would be like this. A full sun is a complete rounded circle, which is made up mostly of gases. The question is, how could we live on the sun? Are the gases such that we could do that? The sun is a mighty powerful heat. It's almost impossible to go near the sun. The sun is more manageable. And you will see in a moment, well, not a moment, but in a couple of years, that NASA is going back to the sun. To be clear, that's what she's claiming she meant to say. So the spin that this ignoramus came up with is that she didn't mean to say that stupid thing. She actually meant to say something even stupider. So now we have a choice. Either Sheila Jackson Lee thinks that the moon is made up of gases, or she thinks that we can live on the sun and that NASA in a couple of years will be visiting the sun, or rather going back to it because they've already visited it once. So pick your poison. Are you a few years or even decades out of school and wondering, what the heck did I even learn and what was the point? You might even be thinking, I don't know, I don't have the time to learn something new. Well, if that's you, you're not alone and it's not too late. Hillsdale College is offering more than 40 free online courses. Learn about the works of C.S. Lewis, the rise and fall of the Roman Republic, or the history of the ancient Christian church with Hillsdale College's online courses. If you're not sure where to start, check out American Citizenship and Its Decline with Victor Davis Hanson. In this 8-lecture course, Victor explores the history of citizenship in the West and the threats it faces today. Threats like the erosion of the middle class, the disappearance of our borders, the growth of an unaccountable deep state, and the rise of globalist organizations. The course is self-paced so that you can start whenever and wherever you want. Start your free course of American Citizenship and Its Decline with Victor Davis Hanson today. Go to hillsdale.edu/Walsh to enroll. There's no cost. It's easy to get started. It's hillsdale.edu/Walsh to enroll. hillsdale.edu/Walsh. And keep in mind, that what you just heard there was only a 45-second clip of remarks that went on for more than 5 minutes. And believe it or not, it actually gets worse. Watch.
What you will see today will be the closest distance that the moon has ever been in the last 20 years, which means that's why they will shut the light down, because they will be close to the earth, which is an amazing experience and what we are supposed to experience, and I'm hoping we can, complete darkness.
Okay, now I can't be sure what exactly this lunatic is babbling about, but she seems to be confusing an eclipse with a supermoon. The latter occurs when a full moon coincides with the moon's closest approach to Earth, which is something that happens not once every 20 years, but a few times every year. And as for the statement that they will shut the light down, I honestly have no idea what that's even supposed to mean. Like, who is they? They will shut the light down? Does she think there are people living on the moon who manually control how much light comes from the sun? In my entire life, I've never heard anyone refer to the moon as a they. Like, no, when have you ever heard anyone point to the moon and go, look at them? Does she think the moon is non-binary? We can't be sure. But she keeps going. Listen.
The one impact I want you to have is how you are controlled by something outside of your human experience. That the solar system is bigger than us, though there are solar systems and there are systems that are smaller than the Earth. Still, we're in a solar system, and we depend on the Earth, the moon, and the sun. That is our existence. That is what creates our desire for creativity, our music, our weather, our rain, our snow, our cold, our heat. That solar system working.
The moon and sun create our music, she says. I mean, that's obviously asinine, but it's the closest thing she gets to resembling like a coherent thought. And the problem is that right before that, she claims that there are solar systems smaller than the Earth. That would mean that somewhere in the universe, there is a star that together with its planets orbiting it is smaller than the Earth itself. and so small, in fact, that the orbit of the planets around it is no greater than the diameter of the Earth. Now, for the record, there is no evidence that anything like that exists anywhere in the universe, but it does exist in Sheila Jackson Lee's imagination, a place where the moon is not only made up of gases, but is also, of course, a planet.
We have yet to know whether you can live on the moon. But I don't know about you. I want to be first in line to know how to live and to be able to survive on the moon. That's another planet, which you're going to see shortly.
Yes, Sheila, I want you to be first in line, too. I very much want you to be first in line. Now is probably a good time to tell you that this woman graduated from Yale. She is a Yale graduate, a prominent congresswoman, a former member of multiple science committees, yet she can't even bull her way through a 5-minute presentation about the eclipse to a bunch of public school kids without diving headfirst into the most bizarre science fiction anyone has ever heard. This is like what would happen to me if I woke up one day and suddenly found myself standing in front of some sort of conference of mathematicians expected to give a presentation about calculus. Except that I could probably get out at least 1 or 2 sentences before it becomes painfully obvious that I haven't the slightest clue what I'm talking about. And also, that's calculus. In Sheila Jackson Lee's case, she was asked to speak at a grade school level about the moon, and she couldn't do it. Now, fortunately, she did fact check herself during her remarks, checking with someone to make sure that her science was accurate. Watch.
And Dr. Simmons, I didn't go too far away from the scientific explanation. Is that correct, hopefully? All right, so I was near it.
She was near it. Yeah, she was about as near as the Earth is to Pluto, which, according to Sheila Jackson Lee, is probably about 14 and a half miles or so. And my only regret is that they didn't pan to Dr. Simmons to get her, look being put on the spot there. The moon is a gaseous entity, and inside it grows strawberries and unicorns. Dr. Simmons, I'm pretty close on the science, right? Not too far? Yeah, pretty close? Now, there's no reason to belabor the point any more than I already have. The point is that this woman quite literally could not pass a first-grade science exam, and yet she is a member of the Party of Science and has been a prominent congresswoman in that party for 30 years. Unless you think that perhaps this woman has not always been this stupid, perhaps she's just another member of our ruling class who is suffering from dementia or some other form of brain damage. Consider that way back in 1997, it was reported that this same congresswoman, then a member of the House Committee on Science, visited the Mars Pathfinder Operations Center in Pasadena, California, and asked, reportedly, whether the Pathfinder on Mars had been able to find the flag planted there by Neil Armstrong. This question was not caught on camera. So after it was reported, Sheila Jackson Lee's office, of course, denied it and also, of course, accused the journalist of racism. But now we know, all these years later, that believing we visited and planted a flag on Mars is actually the least idiotic misconception this woman has about our solar system. So we are ruled by morons, by people who should not be trusted to walk across the room holding a pair of scissors, people who probably have to wear Velcro shoes so they aren't caught on camera struggling to tie them. These are the people running the country. Now, the good news is that maybe we can convince them to board a rocket ship and take a trip to visit the sun. I hear it's nice this time of year, and that would certainly solve a lot of our problems. Thanks for checking out this video. If you'd like to listen to my full podcast on the go, you can check out The Matt Walsh Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.